On December 25, 2024, the Embraer E190AR aircraft of Azerbaijan Airlines, operating Flight J2-8243 from Baku to Grozny, made an emergency landing 3 kilometers near the city of Aktau, Kazakhstan. The aircraft took off from Baku at 8 o'clock UTC 4 o'clock Azerbaijan time. There were a total of 67 people on board the plane, including 62 passengers and 5 crew members. Everything was going normally until the plane entered Russian airspace. But a few minutes after entering Russian airspace, there was an explosion in the tail section of the plane around the city of Grozny, and the pilot realized that there were problems with the handling of the plane. In this emergency situation, the pilot requested permission for an emergency landing at all nearby airports, especially at Grozny Airport, but the landing was not allowed at Grozny Airport due to heavy fog and was diverted to Maxakala Airport. But for unknown reasons, Maxakala Airport was also denied landing and diverted to the airport in Aktau, Kazakhstan. The plane was now out of control from the impact on the tail section, and the pilots were trying to make the plane land as softly as possible. But despite the successful control and experience of the pilots, the plane went completely out of control and crashed near the city of Aktau, Kazakhstan. After the plane was slammed into the ground, first the right wing was shaken on the surface, and the tail section was detached from the fuselage and remained on the edge of the explosion site. Most of the survivors were those in the tail section. Unfortunately, when the plane was slammed into the ground, those who were in the 10 section of the plane lost their lives due to the explosion. So what's behind this mysterious cauldron? In recent days, Ukrainian drones have been attacking the Russian city of Grozny. There they were using the Pantsir defense system against drones. They mistook an Azerbaijani Airlines Embraer 190 civilian plane approaching Grozny for a drone and considered it a threat to them and fired at the civilian plane. The firing destroyed the tail section and control panels of the Embraer 190 plane. After the civilian plane was shot down by the Russian air defense, the Russian side falsely informed Kazakhstan that an Azeri Embraer 190 civilian plane had to make an emergency landing at 10:53 a.m. due to an explosion of an oxygen cylinder and loss of consciousness of the passengers. He said that the pilots of the crashed plane were denied permission to land at Russian airports despite an emergency landing request and ordered to fly over the Caspian Sea to Aktau, Kazakhstan. According to the information, the plane's GPS navigation systems were locked along the flight route over the sea. Given all this information, it seems that the Russians deliberately did not allow the damaged plane to land, changed the flight route and directed it towards the city of Aktau through the Caspian Sea, and also calculated that the plane would fall into the sea by creating GPS confusion. If the plane had landed on the sea, the wreckage would have remained unknown, and the deliberate crash would have remained unknown. But what they didn't take into account was that the pilot managed to get an unusable plane to Aktau city and tried to find ways to make it as soft as possible, and finally the pilot saw that the plane was completely out of control and had to land the plane near Aktau airport. At the moment the plane crashed, the tail section of the plane was severed, and the front part of the plane was partially burned due to the collision with the ground. There were 37 people from Azerbaijan, 6 from Kazakhstan, 3 from Kyrgyzstan, 3 from Kyrgyzstan, 16 from Russia, 5 crew members, 67 people in total. 26 people were left alive, and they were in the tail section of the plane. There are also traces of external intervention in the debris left on the ground after the plane crashed, namely on the tail of the plane. Repair marks on the tail and arms of the plane indicate that the plane was shot down. Immediately after the first images emerged from the plane wreckage, Russian politicians and media outlets threw out many theories to change the direction of the incident. First, it was suggested that the plane had collided with a flock of birds while flying, but since this theory was not effective, the theory of the partitioning of the oxygen tube in the hull was later put forward. But since no theory put forward by the Russian side was effective, they issued a statement saying that we will not say anything until we have official investigative information and until the causes of the accident are clearly established. Previously, Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 a Boeing 777-200ER with tail number 9MMRD from Amsterdam Airport Schiphol to Kuala Lumpur International Airport on July 17, 2014, crashed in the village of Hrabov, Donetsk Oblast, Ukraine, 60 kilometers from the Russian border, killing 298 people. 283 passengers and 15 crew members were on board. The plane crashed in an area where Ukrainian troops and pro-Russians were in conflict. Russian news agency Interfax announced that the plane was shot down by a Buk missile in Ukrainian airspace at an altitude of 10,000 meters, 33,000 feet. But this was denied a few days later, revealing that Malaysia Airlines was actually shot down by Russian air defenses. All of these problems are the result of flaws and weaknesses in the Russian air defense systems, leading to the shooting down of civilian aircraft and civilian casualties. But in fact, had they not mistakenly ignored the damage to the Embraer 190 of Azerbaijan Airlines, had they accepted the pilot's request for an emergency landing, and had they landed the plane on time, there would have been no loss of life and the Russian side would not have been the guilty party. Unfortunately, the tower at Grozny Airport ignored the emergency landing call of the Embraer 190 and diverted the plane to Mahakale Airport, saying that it could not land on the runway due to thick fog. Mahakale Airport Tower, knowing very well the plane's emergency landing request, left it to die and directed it to Aktau Airport, which was further away, instead of helping it make a quick landing. In addition, the pilot of the Embraer 190 was wandering around the Russian airspace for nearly 2 hours, looking for a landing trace, and the pilot, who realized that they were left alone, directed the plane towards the airport of Aktau City. While the plane was over the Caspian Sea, Russia was jamming the GPS system of the plane, which can be seen when you look at the positions where the plane was flying on the flight radar. All these efforts were to clear the plane from all traces and liability by falling into the Caspian Sea before landing at Aktau Airport. Even though the plane was able to reach Aktau Airport, it could not avoid the accident. Even though the pilot tried to land softly, he could not control the plane, and after completely losing control, the plane crashed to the ground and 41 people lost their lives, although 26 people survived. The question is, if any of your regions are attacked, why don't you close the airspace to civilian aircraft as a security measure? If for some reason you opened fire on a civilian plane, why didn't you land it safely? Why are you suppressing the plane you shot down? The black box of the Embraer 190 aircraft numbered J2-8243 belonging to Azerbaijan Airlines was found and was taken to Brazil, the country where the Embraer company is located, for examination. All eyes are on the final information that will come out of the black box. Don't forget to like and comment on our video until we see you in the next video.